There's a corner of the internet that will tell you a story explaining exactly why your life didn't work out. And it's a very, very convincing one. In the last 5 years, it's gone from an isolated text form to a cultural movement that is actively reshaping how a generation of men see themselves, women, and the world. I want to ask a question. What do we actually do with that? Not with the ideology, but with the people inside of it.
She isn't your friend. While you sit on your bed dreaming about her, she's long forgotten about you. She's kissing her boyfriend. You're deluding yourself into a lie.
No.
Thinking she will ever care for you as anything more than a sponge to squeeze attention out of. Run and hide. Don't fall for it. Just lay down and die.
But what if she does actually like me? What am I saying? I gotta cut her off now. That shit is cocked. Maybe in another life she could have loved me. Gosh, it's a good thing I can extrapolate truth about this world. That void almost tricked me. Oh shit, bed is due. Come on. Yes! Right again, as always. Why is it so hard to change someone's mind, even when you're right? All of the content I've seen that's covering the proliferation of the black pill throughout Gen Z seems to serve a single purpose: to reiterate ideas that the audience already had, with the political direction simply being skewed by an aesthetic preference. I want to try something different. Whether you are an incel or you hate them, let's try to be curious. To apply curiosity in the context of incels and the black pill, we have to begin by understanding and appreciating what the black pill is, what it's observing in the world, and how it spreads. The black pill is best defined by its aura. It's a set of language, memes, beliefs, and communities, all unified by anger, with modern culture's distribution of sex and the means of reproduction. The black pill uses an economic lens to view the world, a core desire for a shift from sexual capitalism to sexual communism. They want to correct sex and reproduction disparity, and as they call, society only meets them with a deafening rejection, a rejection that leaves those who have taken the black pill to only one logical conclusion, what they would call total moid death. We can divide the structure of the general incel ideology into 3 pillars: inevitability, indignation, and virginity. The first is simple. It's over. There's no way out, there never was, and there never will be. A belief that the world has kicked incels to the bottom of an inescapable dark pit, a violation that no one wants to acknowledge, a universal gaslight. And incels don't even necessarily disagree with this social ordering. They don't necessarily think it's wrong. The world in their eyes is a just one, where people get what they deserve. A world where your fate is sealed the day you're born. The second core of the black pill is indignation, arising from a sense that society has cheated the subhuman man. The incel has concluded that society took sex away, rationalized through post-hoc evolutionary psychology and eugenics. They think about men's historical progression as the move from controlling the world to submitting to it, a surrender that took away men's power to demand sex. Without this power to command sex, the incel concludes women are doomed to fall for their biological desires for hypergamy, where 20% of the most attractive men, the chads, compete for 80% of women. This belief that masculinity is no longer justly compensated, but rather exploited by women, is the social analysis that fuels their resignation from society, a resentful and unfulfilled entitlement. The final piece of this puzzle is a need for a purity and virginity. To be accepted into the community, simply being involuntarily celibate isn't enough. A true cel is a mantle held by those who are kissless, hugless, hand-holdless virgins. The true cel uses this untouchability as a tool for status. The pure virgin rests above the fake cel on the social hierarchy that exists in these communities, even if they share similar experiences. This is a purity test that paradoxically establishes untouchability as something to be valued. Any person, normie, or fake cel that threatens the idea that ugly men shouldn't completely and totally ignore women is pushed out. These beliefs aren't particularly hope-inspiring, so where do they come from? We can use the staircase to terrorism model to understand how radicalization happens in 4 steps, starting long before any incel subscribes to Andrew Tate. Pre-radicalization, blame-seeking, actual radicalization, and the integration into a community. Future incels grow up and learn a few things from their experiences during pre-radicalization. When they observe and directly experience the difference between attractive and unattractive people's romantic success, the pre-cell becomes acutely aware of his appearance. A deep insecurity forms here, before these kids even have the language to describe it. An insecurity that's worsened by themes of social rejection, bullying, and humiliation. These experiences shift their psychology, priming them for even further radicalization. Lacking the support and the experience to develop appropriate coping mechanisms and skills, these kids develop a sense of hopelessness and hypervigilance. This rejection sensitivity commands the pre-cell to be avoidant at the first sign that anything might even potentially be off in his social relationships, killing any connection he has left. At this point, being completely isolated, deferring responsibility, and looking for something to blame outside of yourself is really the least painful option left. This is the second stage of radicalization, where these kids grasp at anything they can to make sense of the pain they're experiencing. Women, society, genes, autism, and bad parenting are the usual suspects. When you're on tired legs kicking for life in the ocean, anything, even a human, looks like a good place to catch your breath. This cognitive opening is then attacked in stage 3. The actual point of radicalization. Often this is described as a specific event in the incel's life. Some piece of content or some experience that made all of their pain click. A breakthrough moment that changes the incel's engagement with the world forever. This discovery often happens in stages. If we think of the manosphere broadly as being interested in gaining male power and reducing female power, the red pill is a precursor. Here, men learn that they are fundamentally oppressed by a misandrist society. In this view, to take the red pill is to become aware of existing in this lower class. The black pill then builds on this idea, adding beauty as another filter in our social hierarchy, leaving ugly men at the bottom of a very dark pit. This is a revelation that is solidified in the last phase of radicalization, the integration into a community. Despite the necessary hopelessness of the black pill, in some sense, it's a bit comforting. At least, it feels correct. And when everyone around you sees the world as you see it, there's a sense of comfort in that, a sense of belonging found in a shared story of rejection. The mechanism spinning this wheel of identity progression could be understood through another lens. Berlant's cruel optimism. Let's zoom out to see the underlying fear loop that happens in these kids. During childhood, they yearn to feel normal. They want to socially integrate. As they continue to fail again and again, they become acutely aware of their inability to flourish. They want to learn to stop feeling this way, and they're motivated to find the tools for change. And so they look. The cruelness of this optimistic view, that things might actually be able to change for the better, comes from what they find. A plethora of manosphere content that teaches them a new worldview, one that directly inhibits their ability to socially integrate. Much like the American dream, where employees think that working hard can free them of their economic anxieties, the incel slaves away at a pursuit that hollows his mind, in what Berlant would call a slow death. This hope that their pain can be relieved is the very thing that perpetuates their engagement forever, as their beliefs only grow more and more extreme. Okay, I want to take a step back. In all my time on the internet, I've seen a lot of content directed towards the black pill, and it's always filled with anger, disgust, and hatred. I think I've positioned myself pretty interestingly for this video. I think all of the incels watching this are kind of going to assume I'm not fairly representing their side, and all of the people that hate incels are going to be watching this thinking I'm not going nearly hard enough. How's that even really possible? Can we be curious for a second? How can these two groups of people see the same situation, the same video, in such drastically different ways? And further, how can two groups of people interpret the same society so vastly differently? There's some insight there in how the mind works and how we automatically form these assumptions from our experiences and observations. Now, to be clear, that's not me saying that the hatred that we see online for the black pill and incels isn't deserved. This community has directly caused violence and stoked the modern gender war that we see today. But in all these posts, they only focus on that surface emotion. No one actually engages. They just write off the entire movement as fabricated by schizos in their basement watching Andrew Tate. And society's response to these men has always been the exact same. Gaslight and deny. I don't want to do that. These feelings and this identity obviously comes from somewhere. There's a group of men out there that just got dealt the shitty hand. As a man, I'm not going to sit here and patronize you and tell you that it wouldn't have sucked to have been born 5'2" with a facial disfigurement, in the same way that it would have sucked to have been born paralyzed. There's a real material loss there. You're not wrong when you say that dating and the world in general is superficial. It fucking is. But that doesn't mean it's over. But think about all the men who do actually try and make meaningful progress. Yeah, the ones that you think are cucked. Do you think they feel that way? When they look in the mirror, do you actually think that they're not proud of themselves? They're not happy with the progress they've made? Because I bet you they are. They're only cucked in your analysis, because you're only seeing certain things. You're not considering the pride in progress, or the enjoyment in genuinely believing in yourself. In the same way that a full-on blue pillar ignores a lot of things about the world, you are too. You're just ignoring them in the other direction. The things that we don't consider feel like they shouldn't be considered, but that's because we don't have the experience to contextualize why they're actually valuable. When someone finds out they're allergic to bees for the first time, all of those experiences they had with bees before then, they never considered the buzzing, until they got stung. Their experience and that pain changed how they viewed the world. And you're doing the same thing. Don't let the pain of a single sting get in the way of you tasting honey. At its core, the black pill is an expression of tremendous pain. These are normal people just trying to go through life and make sense of the world as it's been presented to them. A report from the UK found that most incels work full-time jobs or attend full-time university. They politically lean slightly left of center. 30% of them met clinical cutoffs for autism spectrum disorder, and 86% of them were victims of bullying. Less than 5% of people justified the use of violence, and this is the loudest 5%. There is simply no global extreme right-wing manosphere threat. It's a marginalized group whose primary sin was being forced to grow up too fast. Let's pause here. If these are just normal people who work and go to school like everyone else, why now? Beauty and attractiveness have always been important to society, but we've never seen anything quite like the black pill before. Cultural cycles exist because over time, societies broadly face the same problems, and so they implemented the same solutions. Therefore, it follows that if we see new solutions happening in modern culture, the problems must have changed. Gender performance is unstable. It's not something you own, it's something you lease. And rent is due every day. Growing up, men are taught that to be a man is to provide and support those around you. And in a world where financial instability is at an all-time high, men are no longer able to behave how they were taught a man should.
Oh,
Hey honey, I'm home.
hi, welcome home. How was your day?
It was alright, not too bad, not too bad. Yeah.
Kid! Your father's home! Dinner's ready! Oh my gosh, you know, the kids today, you had so much energy.
Yeah?
You did not stop running around. Such rascals.
Oh man. Yeah, I had a long day too, but I finally got that raise we were talking about.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
Oh my gosh, congratulations!
Thank you.
We should celebrate! Your 25th is coming up as well. Let's invite your brother and his family.
Oh
I
shit.
don't clean the guest bedroom for nothing.
Sounds good, honey. Oh, hey kids, come sit. Your mother made dinner.
Oh, me? What do I do for work? I'm a business consultant. I kind of like, I just like. Yeah, bro. I took her home. It was a pretty great night, yeah. Oh, what did we do? Oh, I mean, we had dinner and stuff. We just kind of hung out.
This drastic shift in societal conditions has left men without the resources they need to provide. And so, masculinity has adopted a capitalist logic, using this new sense of logic to inform modern male gender roles. Your worth as a man has become about how much sex you can have. It's about your access to women's bodies, a new form of capital to accumulate. Evolutionarily, men's preference for reproduction has always focused on quantity over quality, as this would have maximized the chances of reproductive success. This can be contrasted with women, who evolved to focus on mate quality in order to maximize the chances of finding a partner worth raising a child with. We can understand this using the sociometer of life success theory. One's sense of self-esteem is an internal thermometer your psyche uses to gauge your progress in particular life tasks, including reproduction and social integration. In this context, we can deduce that there is some target number of sexual experiences the mind is aiming for, unique across people, cultures, and gender. And falling below that line leads to losses in self-esteem. Short-term mating strategies can be thought of as one strategy among many for reproduction, one that is preferred by particular types of men. The incel is one of these types of men. Unstable and unpredictable social environments lend themselves to a focus on the here and now, rather than long-term development or investment. Therefore, these are the exact group of people that we should expect to be negatively psychologically affected by a lack of sex. This negative sense of self grows into a yearning desire to be able to perform as a man. And the easiest way left to be a man is through attempted dominance and aggression, a last resort that leads to even further social exclusion, and gives society yet another reason to write men off. It's a fundamental problem of scale. In the past, if you were sexless and frustrated, friends would reach out. Maybe some would try to figure out what's wrong, and maybe others would give you a firm reality check, but there would be some feedback there. You would have some sense of social integration to correct this internal self-esteem meter. In any given church or work community, there would be plenty of lonely or weird guys, but people still interacted with them. At scale, however, in a society that does its best to isolate us, a million lonely guys collapse into a single dark shadow, something so massive it becomes unreachable. Society and individuals can't make progress when dealing with something so massive and intangible. And so, incels are left rotting without support. Masculinity broadly was described as dominant, active, and aggressive in the past. Today, it's been tied to exclusively negative ideas like misogyny, violence, and homophobia. The lines have been blurred between the masculinity expressed by most and the antisocial behaviors expressed by few. The research is clear that believing traditional masculinity is a good thing is connected to a higher sense of self-esteem and a higher degree of social integration. There's a lot of cultural haze around the term traditional masculinity. When I'm using it to refer to a set of behaviors, like providing and protecting, keeping your emotions to yourself, and fighting for what you believe in. I'm not saying these behaviors are necessarily good. The importance here isn't in the objective value of any of these ideas, but in a man's perception of them. Humans, both men and women, really don't like it when their problems are reduced to gender. A UK study asked a simple question: what happens when we tell every boy that he was born toxic? Most men believed the idea harmed these young boys, whether or not they were good or bad. Of course, that's kind of expected though. No one would really want to know that their kids or their nephews are being called toxic. Broadly, this study found that both men and women who found themselves with relational or work problems being blamed on their gender became very unhappy. Here lies the problem. Imagine a world where you were priced out of your ability to perform the actions that you were raised to believe gave you your value, that gave you your identity. You can't buy a home or afford to support your family anymore. And as the world has shifted to viewing sex as the new token of masculinity, you don't have access to that either. And even worse, when you go out into the world for support, for some sense of reprieve, what do you hear back? You're told that you're a man and your masculinity is causing the problem, a fundamental cornerstone of the identity that you were born with. What do you even do in that world? Who do you turn to? Where do you go? When everything is confusing, you go to the one hopeless place that at least makes sense. Your community of others just like you. Financial instability is only going to get worse, and fewer men are going to be able to provide for their families and signal traditional male gender roles. And fuck, maybe masculinity fundamentally needs to change. Maybe it needs to adapt to a new world. But those changes will be slow, and they're going to have growing pains. Leaving those most affected, isolated, and shamed is going to do nothing but divide us. The blaming of unique problems on gender is inherently self-defeating. You can be 100% right in these attacks, and no progress will be made. They won't change anything.
I want to be clear. The incel identity is a problem that I think we need to remove from society. The identity, not the people. The only way to achieve a change like that is to inspire that change. You can't exactly force people to change their beliefs. We all choose to view the world exclusively through our own lenses and reject the possibility that anyone else built theirs in good faith. But what if they were? What if we instead chose to be curious and to try to understand? What would the world look like?
Another fucking low-T idiot virtue signaling duck saying quack, bro. I'm done.
Maybe he is right. Maybe if society did change.
Don't tell me you're falling for that bullshit, bro. You can't be serious, right? Close that video and say I'm right, bro. I'm done with it. Realizing the truth of the world is the only thing that could set you free.
Free? I don't know.
Come back to my channel if you want, bitch. Damn. Only I can keep you safe here.
Okay.
When the world sets out to put you in a box, many use ideology as a form of escape, thinking that if you can live out some ideology and all of its prerequisites, you can actually find a release. You can actually change things materially. But you can't. It's not possible. The cultural realities of society are far too big for any one person to change. Your identity is not built from your logic or your rational conclusions about the world, but rather your identity and the identity of everyone around you is built purely from the sum of their experiences. Consider your thoughts for a moment. Where exactly do they come from? You don't really think of them when you're outside in the world operating normally. They just kind of bubble up, outside of your control. These thoughts bubble from the bottom of the ocean of our experiences. The fear of a buzzing around your head comes from the memory of the pain of being stung. This means that if we want to change our thoughts, we have to change our experiences. There is no avenue to change our beliefs and thoughts directly. Further, if we want to change the thoughts and beliefs that divide us as a society, we can only do so by sharing new experiences. I get it. If you're a Blackpiller or an incel watching this video, maybe you don't really think I can relate to you. I'm tall, I'm white, I'm relatively attractive. Fuck, how could I really understand your pain? And in some sense, I don't disagree. Those things definitely helped me on my journey. But you know what else really helped me? My willingness to let my old self go. To let that young man die. Growing up, I never had a lot of success with girls. I was 300 pounds and a fucking math Olympian, okay? That young boy had a lot of fears. Fears of being creepy or making other people uncomfortable that I learned from just being unattractive and having negative experiences. And those things felt so fucking real to me. Because of course they did. They were real. They were real to me. But that's just it. They were only real in the context of those experiences. I hadn't yet seen an entirely new world that taught me that those fears were really just in my head. New experiences that changed my worldview and gave me the inspiration I needed to aim higher, to lose weight, and to pursue becoming a better person. A new set of beliefs that maybe, just maybe, it isn't over. And I'm not saying that it isn't gonna be hard, because it really, really is. But don't be so sure of your mind's logic. It has a real knack for tricking you into getting you to do exactly what it wants, to stay the same and never progress. Above all else, don't abandon hope. Keep pushing and trying to experience new things. Each step you take forward into unmarked ground makes the next step just that much easier. If that isn't enough, remember that your progress extends beyond you. Even if you can only move the needle a little bit in your own life, you will gain stories and wisdom to pass on to the next innocent man who got dealt a shitty hand. The first man through the wall always gets bloody. There's a meaning for the responsibility you can take for the ones who come after you. You can make meaningful progress in every category that you think holds you back, except maybe your height. But hold on, almost every study analyzing attraction and height pulls its dataset exclusively from dating apps. And if you really think about it, of course women are gonna select for height there. What else do they have to look at? It's literally just your height, some random thing in your bio, and your face. In real life, when women have context and rapport to build off of from just natural interactions, preferences look a lot different. And in fairness, there is still a material disadvantage to being short. Let's not get that twisted. But to say that being short means you can't find love is just as blind as saying that height doesn't matter. The world isn't fair. And you're allowed to see that. You're allowed to see that immutable things like height hurt you, but they don't kill you. Thanks for watching. And remember, be curious and stay human. If you like this video, check out my last one for a guide on finding meaning in a sea of infinite content. You can also sub to my Patreon for access to a poetry club and your name in the credits.